Hey, Pepin.
Yo, 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 yo.
I've been thinking a lot lately about comic strips.
Comic strips? Like Kelvin and Hobbes?
Like, wait, did you say it's Calvin, right?
No, Kelvin and Hobbes.
So Hobbes is the philosopher. What's Kelvin?
He's the
Is
like
he a
the
philosopher?
no, he's like the unit of measurement. Like heat, right? I mean, you have 0
What?
Kelvin, which is absolute
No,
0,
you
and
have
then you go up.
Fahrenheit.
No, Kelvin, Celsius, Fahrenheit. There's
Nate,
3.
Kevin, we need to talk. Welcome back. So glad you guys could join us. I am here once again with my best friend Nathan Pepin. How's it going today, Pepin?
Yo, I am very tired, but I am here, awake, and I got some energy here in a can, so I'm going to try to consume it.
Fair enough. I have different energy in a different can. Be weird if it was in the same can. And we are joined today by special guest BamaShockz. How's it going today, Bama?
Doing pretty good, fellas. How are y'all?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for jumping in on this. We told you 1 minute before recording started, hey, do you want to be on? And you were rip rare and ready to go, and
Well,
hugely appreciated.
you're very welcome. As a content creator, you always got to be ready to jump into the action.
And you very much are. And on top of that, where we're talking about units of measurement of temperature today, I know, fascinating shit. We brought in a master electrician in BamaShockz. Is that the Shocks part of your name or the Bama?
That would be the shocks part of my name. Bama is just where I'm from, and the football team I root for, Roll Tide.
Oh, okay, the Roll Tides. So, Pepin, you were talking about Calvin and Hobbes?
Well, kind of Kelvin, because Kelvin is a type of measurement for, say, heat, and it's not very used outside of, say, like physics, but it's probably used a couple different places. I think Bama was talking about earlier before we got on the stream here about a certain way it's used, which I never heard of. But yeah, Kelvin's a very interesting unit of measurement because it's taking the physical kind of idea of absolute zero, which for people who don't know, temperature is just it's essentially a measurement of internal motion of atoms. So when atoms kind of move together, they have a certain they create friction, or that's not true, but they have this kind of internal movement that generates heat, and that's kind of like a level of energy. If you just keep slowing down and down and down until like they stop moving, which they will never stop moving because quantum physics, but you get them too close to absolute zero, and that's when they don't move, and that's the coldest you can get essentially, like just on a physical level. You can't get any colder than that, and that's 0 Kelvin. Now we live at like a very high Kelvin level because the scale is absolutely ridiculous. Because I don't know it's an absolute hotness, but yeah, there's it goes pretty high up, and I don't know if Bama could speak to like the one measurement in Kelvin that I've never heard of that we have, apparently the lighting.
When it comes to lighting in our homes and offices and stuff like that, we tend to measure between about 2,000 Kelvin up to 5,000 Kelvin, which is the equivalent of daylight. Your office settings, you're looking somewhere around 4,000 Kelvin, while in the home, you hover somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 Kelvin. That's your warmer light.
Interesting.
See, it's interesting to get to measure it with that. Because I mean, Kelvin could also be like a unit of energy too, because like internal energy of the atoms. But yeah, that's a very interesting use. I mean, we also have the two other measurements of heat. I'm sure there's more, but there's also Celsius and Fahrenheit. I don't know the history between the two, but I can definitely say that Celsius is superior.
Wait, what?
It's superior. It's just better.
Okay. Well, there are some other ones. I know Rankine is one, and then there's like another one. But Rankine's like the Kelvin to Fahrenheit because Celsius is based on Kelvin and Fahrenheit is on Rankine. in not based on, but in the sense that they one is the polar other end.
Mhm, mhm. As far as I know, Fahrenheit came first, and then Celsius
Yes.
came in later when scientists were trying to like advance certain things, and all they did essentially was took two things of water, the freezing point, which is 32, and in Fahrenheit, and said 32 is going to be the zero in the scale, and then let's take the other side, the boiling point, and let's just make that 100. So the I think Celsius is pretty good for most everything. The only thing that's a little bit annoying with it is you have to give like if you're talking about normal temperatures like the weather, you have to say like 37.5, like which is a little awkward to say, but I mean it makes perfect sense for like say if you say it's zero, it's very clearly what that means. If you say it's 100, it's very clear what that means. With Fahrenheit, we grew up in that system, so it's obvious, but it's not obvious to people who say aren't in that system.
Yeah, because Fahrenheit's like a much wider range. It's 32 for freezing and like 255 for boiling. So the range there is, like 200 degrees, where the range for Celsius is 100 between freezing and boiling. So you're able to get much more minute measurements without having to jump to decimal points. Like you're saying, you're talking about basic weather stuff, and instead of saying a round number, you're ending up going into a decimal. So I think Fahrenheit is better for practical weather application because you it's more the scale ends up being more relative to like how humans feel temperature. 100 is a very hot day outside and 0 is a very cold day outside versus in Celsius 0 is like pretty chilly. It's like cold. It's freezing for water, but it's still not that cold compared to the negative degrees in Fahrenheit that we get to.
Hmm. And I agree in that. So that's the one instance, but at the same time, I don't think it makes that big of a deal. I mean, just to add like an extra point on, like 35.2, 37.7, and I'm not sure if Bama has like really gotten into this with people, but like I don't think it makes a deal of a difference. Like just adding a little point on that, maybe it's more relatable. But then again, if you know what 200 is, it's super easy.
Well, when it comes to temperature with us, like you tell me it's in the 60s, I know it's going to be mild outside. You tell me it's in the 30s, I know it's going to be frigid. I don't know the difference in 35.1 and 35.8.
So let's say that you hypothetically grew up in, say, a Celsius system. You think that would be learned? Like you would kind of know what
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
35.8 and 35 points, 9. Like,
Yeah. It's definitely learned. It's how we're taught growing up. We know that 98.6 is the normal human temperature, whereas I have no idea what it would be in Celsius.
mhm, mhm. And it's actually an easy way to kind of remedy this too. I turned my phone off. So there is with say this is the great thing with the metric system because anything in metric you can essentially start breaking it down in its subunits. So we all know about the meter, and then there's the decimeter, there's a centimeter, there's a kilometer, there is a technically a megameter,
And a Steven meter.
A Steven meter. Uh, oh, he's
No,
not reacting.
no,
Come on, Steve.
I'm not a unit of measurement. I'm a
But
goddamn person, Nathan. And
see,
Bam, I don't appreciate your insinuations.
well,
I
to be
put you up
fair,
there with the big ones. I didn't throw you in between the millimeter and the centimeter. So come on.
Well, it's more cozy down there.
but technically, with the temperature, you could say so. We have was it degrees Celsius? You could have a deca Celsius. So
Mhm.
it is 72, or no, not 72. It's 32 DC outside.
Okay, why would you go and be just like make it weird? Like it
How is that weird?
just keep things super simple. Okay, so here's my thing, right? So the metric system should replace the US measuring system. It's superior. I think there's very little argument to that to say why the American measurement system is superior would be superior to metric. Metric is better when it comes to regular measurement. And I think that even the US has realized that, and it's slowly starting to make the change. The problem is our whole infrastructure was based on, the standard, we'll call it imperial. It's not technically imperial, but that's what we'll call it to keep it simple. So all the machinery and all of our tools and all of that is all imperial right now. And we have to slowly switch over to metric. As machines break down, instead of replacing it with an imperial unit, we'll replace it with a metric unit. And a lot of places are doing that. So I think we're slowly merging over to it because we do realize it's better. I know I learned it in school, and that was 15 years ago. So I think that that's the right thing to do. I think that Fahrenheit is better for weather and for health purposes.
hmm And just to go back for a second, so the reason why it's better is that mostly because of the scaling aspects. Like you just have like
Yes,
the suffixes. Because
it's more intuitive and it's easier to do mental math.
all right, because in the imperial system, like a lot of weird things happen. Like a pound is a certain amount, and you have like a ton, which is 2,000. There's other instances where it's like just these a foot. There's an inch, so 1 foot is 12 inches, but there's 3 feet in a yard, and then there's 5,026 feet in a mile or something. Like these are just like, where did they even pull these numbers? I mean, there's actually stories about where they pulled these numbers, but it's just kind of like, okay, so they just had this thing that measured like these markers in Roman territories. All right, like, why this? I suppose it's something like logical or better.
No, when it comes to volume, area, length, and things like that, I completely think the metric system would be better. Who the hell wants to deal with a quarter of an inch? Just tell me what it is in centimeters. I mean,
Are centimeters easier to work with, like in the electrical industry?
I would I would think so, but because everything is based on the imperial type system, that's what we have to use with, measuring tapes here are in inches and quarter inches and eighth of inches.
hmm hmm
So I think the metric system is better for units of measurement.
Yes.
So I just want to go out there and say that. I think it's important that I say that out the gate because most people, when I tell them that I think Fahrenheit is superior for weather and for health purposes, they say, well, you're just an American who doesn't understand Celsius. You are so stuck in your ways. And that's just not the truth. Because if I see a superior way to measure something, then that's what I think we should be using, like the metric system. But I don't agree that Celsius is better for those specific purposes.
Okay, I'm gonna rant about one measure of system. So, has anyone heard the stone? Like people
Mhm.
in the UK will talk about
Yeah.
stones a lot.
Yeah.
That's the stupidest one I've heard. Like he's 5 stone or it's 20 stone. It's like like talk about unrelatability. Like what does that mean? Like 200 pounds. That sounds easy enough, but like
I got a better one for you.
okay, what's that?
How about a gill?
A gill?
Yeah, it's a unit it's a unit of measurement for liquids. 32 gills in a gallon.
Huh.
Okay. Is that just like a ounce? A fluid ounce?
It's it's a gill, Nathan. Get it right.
Okay.
And it's how I measure unicorn blood in D&D.
I
It's
thought
sold by the gill.
I thought Gil was money in Final Fantasy.
Well, maybe it is that too. So gills and stones. Bring them back.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I'd like to tell you about my podcast. Hi, my name is Ashley, and I'm an introvert. I talk to family and friends, as well as coworkers, about what it feels like to be an introvert or an extrovert. We also talk about life issues and world issues and whatever hell else we have on our minds. You can listen any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you.
Now, one thing that I find interesting is people get very like attached to the measurement systems that you use. Because if you talk about online, it's actually what sparked this conversation. Is Meader was saying that he turned our funny into our measurement politics.
Mhm.
Like people got very scientific, very conversational about how the metric system was better and potentially how maybe there's certain applications of the imperial system which are better, but I guess there was a big 500-page discussion or 500 comment discussion in the are funny, which is kind of funny itself. So it's strange to close the conversation, but why do you think that kind of brings it out of people?
I think people hate change and they love that. I think it's like nationalism, where like what you grew up with is what is right and what is best, whether that's true or not. It's always fascinating to me. And I will put the meme that was posted in our funny that was that sparked this whole thing into our Discord. So if you want to see that, go ahead and grab that Discord link and head on over and check it out. But I'll post that right now while you guys talk about that.
I think there's an element of like people from other cultures. Like if your culture has something which is like kind of generally superior, like that culture will tend to brag about it unless they're Americans. Like Americans tend to be a bit more self-hating because like we know that we're backwards. But whenever Britain has like something right, they will be like, oh yeah, we use the term football instead of soccer. And they just get super pompous about it, which I love.
Soccer is a better name for football, and American football is a better name for the game football.
Okay.
And I will gladly argue that one as well.
Is there any point of contention here with Bama, or are we all in agreement here?
Soccer's a communist sport. Go ahead.
All right. I like this. So I don't have much ideas here. I just find it funny when people are like always complain about that one because I don't care about sports, but like I almost sometimes troll people and call it football just for the heck of it, and sometimes I'll call it soccer, and just to get reactions.
So the thread was the American education system, and it was about how some countries will wear shorts in cold weather and some will wear a jacket in hot weather, and then at the bottom it's like American kids don't even understand Celsius. And it ended up it had like 3 comments when I commented, and it ended up with 565 comments before they shut it down, and I had 50 upvotes.
Nice.
So a lot of people were like, it ended with 5.9 thousand upvotes. So very, very successful Our Funny post with very little funny in it.
Sounds about right.
But anyone who did comment to me and say something funny, like I acknowledged that it was supposed to be in Our Funny. So it was actually a really fun conversation. And most of the crux of it was people saying, you only like Fahrenheit because it's what you're used to, and saying that most of my argument was about the fact that I understand Fahrenheit and I don't understand Celsius, and I don't necessarily agree with that.
No, and on that note, I don't feel like I want to get to know Celsius.
Oh, okay.
Is that just the aspect of learning, or is it just like fuck that system?
Going back to the UK and the football, I feel like people that tout Celsius feel like they're superior as well. Oh.
It was interesting because both sides were kind of acting pompous.
Yeah.
And including myself, my comment had something about like, because somebody else had said that it was hypocritical that that Celsius, people who don't understand Celsius are saying that Fahrenheit is better. And then I was saying that it was hypocritical to call somebody hypocritical when you yourself don't know the difference between the two. Like the person who said that didn't know Fahrenheit. So that was hypocritical in and of itself. And then people started tearing that apart and saying that was hypocritical. It was like the most hypocritical train ever. So it kind of devolved the conversation. So that I had to pull back from commenting on all that and kind of just say I was wrong to post anything about being hypocritical. It completely undermined my entire point because that wasn't the real point. That was like a side comment that wasn't necessary. So I retracted that.
You're saying there was so much pompousness, it was like watching a political debate?
It was. It was very much like that. It was
a
like
very-
watching a political debate where both sides were Trump.
Oh.
I'm going to go on like a little side tangent rant here,
Okay.
but one thing that I kind of wish people had a bit more is kind of respecting, say, historical things or like the history of how we get things. So in one measurement, we have, say, feet, inches, and so on and so forth. And they're stupid, right? I mean, where they come from, who the fuck knows? But we have them, and I think it's kind of all right that we have them. So long as they work, so long as they actually do with their job. I mean, if a foot was like, say, 12 inches one day and 13 inches the next, that'd be one thing, but they stay consistent. In a similar way, there's also measurements of time. So there's BC and there's AD, right? And people are trying to change that to, like, say, before Common Era and after Common Era, BCE and ACE. And I get like the impetus for that because it's more accurate from like it's scientific, right? So they're trying to be scientists and they're trying to keep things, say, politically neutral, but at the same time, the whole Catholic Church is the people who came up with these calendars. They're the people who kind of created this sense of this whole kind of time system. And disagree or agree or whatever with the Catholic Church and what they did, they created the system. So as long as the system's working and it's logical, or not say logical, but so as long as the system's working, I don't see an issue with keeping the historical kind of context of that. I don't think there's a reason to change it. Meader's just staring.
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of similar to like what people were saying in the Reddit, and as I can probably say that about anything you're gonna say because there were so many comments at that point. It's like that's what you should expect. As Nate breaks his microphone. So like, but what they were saying was, well, it makes more sense to go with a system that has a better starting point. Who cares? Because Fahrenheit was originally created based on 0 being the coldest day that had ever been recorded in the specific area that the guy, Mr. Fahrenheit, had lived in. So they were like, that's stupid. But then that was originally it. But then he tweaked the system, and it's different now because he tweaked it to actually be a useful measurement to calibrate temperature recording devices, because it was a consistent 0 was the freezing point of water, like a briny water. It had certain amounts of certain things in it, but what it ended up doing was making it very, very consistent that it always froze there, no matter where you were. Whereas Celsius is, yes, 0 is the freezing point of water, but that's at certain elevations, at certain areas above sea level. I think it's 1 above sea level or whatever. So if you're in a different area above sea level, now all of a sudden your thermometers back then weren't able to be calibrated right because you weren't in the right sea level. So you had to adjust for that and know what that adjustment was, or just have your wrong measurements all the time. And Fahrenheit never had that issue because he had tweaked it to not be the case.
That's
So
interesting.
the fact that they were bringing up, well, it was just invented based on this old thing. Well, yes, but it's changed since then. So maybe that was the case and it was stupid how it came about, but it's irrelevant to how it is now, which was another point people were making, is who cares how it was invented? Because nowadays the recording equipment that we use is what's really important, not the measurement we're actually using. Because if you are worried about how minute you can get the measurements, that's more about what you're using to measure, not the unit of measurement. If you're using a very fine instrument, you can get a good measurement for anything with any unit of measurement.
Right. Yeah. There's good scientific reason for. I mean, like the metric system is very logical, but yeah, I think that's a good point there because it doesn't really matter. Number one, but also number two, like the metric system has some history in it. We could definitely talk about that, especially with the 0 and 100 degrees Celsius, but it doesn't have that same history and the same richness because that's kind of I didn't know he actually did all these testings to try to get like a unique or say valid system, which that's very intriguing. And
he didn't start out that way, but he did start doing it when other people started doing it, and he's like, "Oh shit, this should probably be based on something." And he did a great job. Good job, Mr. Fahrenheit. I support you and your endeavors, and I think it's great. You're the Isaac Newton of measuring temperatures.
Well, I certainly think this episode's going to be hot. I think it's going to be 100 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
And I think that comment was quite low on the Kelvin scale of brightness.
I guess one of my biggest points to actually like get into my whole point here is that Fahrenheit. So people were saying like, well, it's nice to have a zero be like a number based on something relatable, the freezing temperature of water, and that's important in weather. And I don't disagree with that as a comment. Knowing the freezing point of water in weather is a great thing to know because now you're going to know when rain is going to turn to snow. Although usually it's a lot of times even earlier than that because by the time it's that cold down here, it's even colder up there. So it's already frozen by the time it gets down. But anyway, let's just talk about snow sticking to the ground or whatever. Yeah, that is useful. I agree. But is 100 useful? So if you're talking about the baseline being useful, you need to talk about the other end being useful as well. If you're talking about your scale, no?
Mhm. It's a good point there. I can't disagree because like once you get above say 110 degrees, like how often do you talk about above 110 degrees except with cooking, right?
Fahrenheit?
I mean, in everyday life or real life, yeah, Fahrenheit.
Arizona, Nevada, they talk about it all summer long.
hmm
Mhm.
130 though, 150. I mean, probably cooking or other things, but
You'll never get close to that in Celsius with
yeah,
the weather. So
yeah.
you're taking a scale and you're shrinking it down and forcing there to be points in there.
Yeah, and there's a good point that if you say 100 degrees like Fahrenheit, it's very obvious, that that's hot because that's just like, oh, 100, that's a big number. But if you say like, I don't know what it is in Celsius, like 42.5, you're just like, oh, that sounds kind of low, doesn't it? Like, of course, we have the reference there if we got used to it, so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
it is kind of a bit more instinctive there. Though 32 for being like cold isn't that instinctive, but then again, 0 being for super cold, that's definitely pretty instinctive. So you could say that's still an instinctive measurement.
And I get go ahead.
You might find this interesting. 100 Fahrenheit is 37.777777778 Celsius.
Oh, that the last 8 is probably the most important 8 there.
That's the roundup. But that's the thing, right? Because it as you go up, because I think 99 is like 37.33333334 or whatever. So it's like that's gross to me that you need to go to a decimal. Now, what people were saying, and I don't disagree with it, is so what? So what we'll do is we'll just round up or down. Like now you're talking about 34 versus 35 degrees instead of 99 versus 100. And they're like, if you're, because I was saying, well, I think it's nice to have a weather system where I can base what I'm going to wear or whether I'm going to do indoor or outdoor work for my construction crew or et cetera, based on the weather and knowing the temperature. And they're like, if you're choosing what you're going to wear based on the 1 degree difference in weather, you're a fucking idiot. I'm like, you know what? That's a pretty good point that we don't really need to know that 1 degree difference. But to be able to at least have the option to have that 1 degree difference is very nice because then you're not rounding up what would be 3 degrees in Fahrenheit into 1 degree in Celsius. You're not making that rounding necessary. Yeah, I can measure a football field in miles, but why the fuck would I do that when I have yards? Why not use a nice even round number because I have the system to do it? Why would I do that? I can measure it in kilometers, sure. But wouldn't you round to meters? Wouldn't you use the unit of measurement that's correct for that application?
Okay, I'm gonna go on one side tangent and probably wrap it up here. Audio is the most confusing measurement thing out there.
Decibels?
Decibels.
Oh, I thought he was talking about hertz. That's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, there's two confusing things. Number one, there's frequency.
Aren't you an electrical engineer?
So it's this is stuff I understand, but like trying to explain this stuff to like anybody like who's outside the technical background, it's really confusing because decibel is on a logarithmic scale. So it's like let's say you take one sound source and you take the same exact sound source and you kind of have them both at the same level and you stack them on top of each other. How much louder is that new sound in decibels? How much louder in decibels is it?
No idea.
1.
3 decibels.
Oh.
say you expect like some sort of doubling or something like that. And you could say maybe it's doubled on like a linear scale, but on a decibel scale, decibel is logarithmic. So like every say certain amount you go up, the sound doubles, but that amount is logarithmic, so it doesn't really make much sense, or it doesn't make much sense on like a natural scale. And so with sound, you get all these kind of weird things because difference between -12 to 0 decibels is very, very crazy. And this is also why to talk about the human hearing. So like something which is, I think it's like 30 decibels is like, the usual kind of sound in like a normal house, right? That's just kind of like you could hear a pin drop at 0 decibels technically. And then you start going up there and there's a noise floor. So it's usually about 30 inside a house. You can start getting louder and louder. And then you start getting differences like above 100, and like difference between like 100 and 110 is very big. I think it's like a super loud car going by, like a truck, and you get to like 130, that's like an air jet going by. And it's such a like it's a valid unit of measurement, but it's an unrelatable unit of measurement. Actually, we find some things here. Like you do some audio work yourself, Meader. Like have you like really paid attention to decibel scale at all, or you just kind of like wing it?
No, I have not. Bama?
No, I just try to make it sound good.
All my balancing is just done by ear,
Right.
which is why I'm not the one who edits the show.
All right,
When
so
I have a literal professional audio engineer as my co-host, like.
all right, so I'm gonna pull this up here. So we have 30 decibels, like I was saying, it's like they're saying a silent library, and then 70 is busy traffic, so that's pretty loud, right? And then 80 is a vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaners are pretty loud. And then we have 90, which is a shouted conversation. We have 100, 2 passing motorcycles. 110 is a chainsaw. 120, passing ambulance. 130 is a jackhammer at the source. And then you go up to 150, and it's fireworks at 1 meter. So 1 meter away, fireworks going off. And I believe at about 140 is where you start getting hearing loss. And they theorize that if you start going beyond that, at super close distances, that you could actually die. Like there's something that happens inside your brain that can kill you. But it's such a unrelatable kind of say unit measurement, because there's very little things we have in say our everyday life which are done in a logarithmic scale. And logarithmic, this meaning like, so it's like instead of going from a linear scale, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we have 1 is say the main thing, and then the next thing is 10. So 1 is 1, and 2 is like 10, and then 3 is 100, and then 4 is 1,000. That'd be like base 10 scale. I'm not sure if I'm conveying this very well, but it's a whole different kind of scaling method, and it's very unusual, but it's what we use for decibels, and decibels make the foundation of say sound and audio engineering, and it's very, very important, but people do not understand it. And then you get into hertz, and then how that combines with say the decibels, and that gets even more crazy.
I think they went bankrupt.
The bell?
Hertz.
Oh, hurt. Well, that hurts.
Okay. Nate, we need to talk.
So, Bama, where can people find you?
Primarily, I can be found twitch.tv/BamaShockz with a Z.
And what kind of games do you stream usually, or what do you stream most typically?
Primary stream is Dungeons and Dragons here lately.
Dungeons and Dragons?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Meader's been really into Dungeons and Dragons lately. Like he carries dice around with him everywhere just in case it's gonna like break out randomly at like McDonald's. Oh, he's got him like right there.
I got a lot of them right here.
Yes, it is. So do I.
It's like I don't know why, but it's like we were having he came over a little while ago for like a podcast, and it's like we're talking about like having a die, and he just pulls out this big bag full of dice. Like that's how I was
you need a dice? D4, D6? What do you need?
And okay, I get if it's 1 or 2, but he had a whole bag of them. It's like
The bag's gotten bigger, Nathan.
Look, you never know when life's going to give you a strength saving throw, bro.
That's
You just
true.
don't know. Get around
Yeah, Bama streams at least 3 different sessions, right?
Yes, that's correct. 3 sessions, Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday right now.
Ooh.
And I am in the Sunday one, and I play B20. Hold on, I'll put on my voice.
His serial number's long.
I play B2107, a Warforged Paladin.
You're getting fancy. Holy.
Mhm.
Oh my.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. So highly suggested. You said twitch.tv/BAMASHOCKZ.
Correct.
Ooh, Zed.
Mm-hmm.
I like Zed.
Or if you want to do the real way to say that letter, Zelda.
We need to talk.
Mhm.
Oh, we got a double ending.
Ooh, yeah, the warning.